What point, Kurt, does this become a red flag number, just as I asked Evan, where sort of the base of the Republican Party gets so small that Republicans in those 22 to 40 districts that are a little bit more middling start to walk away?
Well, I think you're starting to see the beginnings of a presidency whose basic support is really on the rocks here. You remember, this is a candidate who promised so much to happen so quickly, big promises. Walls were going to be built, Obamacare was going to be repealed, it was going to be easy, everything was going to be fantastic. So a lot of these voters, a lot of whom, by the way, were just frustrated with Washington, with both parties, with the whole process, believing that they were left behind by an establishment, Republican, Democrat-controlled institution that didn't care about them. They thought Trump was going to be the difference maker, and here we are now. We're almost 8 months into this presidency, and none of the things that he talked about have materialized in any way. I think that when people voted for Trump, in a large part, it was about wanting to change Washington, wanting to have someone in there who was different from the outside, who could relate to them, who would just by pure force of nature and will, create the change that they felt needed to happen. And instead of action, we've seen just paralyzation and stalling. And I think that has a lot of voters, and particularly Trump's base, who just wanted so much to happen so quickly, with nothing going on and everyone leaving town, and he's on vacation and spending his entire presidency just on his phone tweeting about things. This is not exactly what they thought that they were going to get.
And, you know, so first to you, Kurt, on this, because the other issue that, you know, the Breitbart world has been using to try to get Trump's numbers back up is this sort of deep state paranoia, the idea that there's a sort of slow motion coup taking place in the West Wing, that people like General Kelly and McMaster are undermining Trump and trying to take over and push out the Breitbart sort of contingent out of the White House. Does that work in terms of keeping Donald Trump's base in place and keeping them paranoid enough to stick with him, or at some point will that even start to wear thin?
Oh, I think for a while it will keep them at bay, because again, a lot of folks who go to Breitbart who are Republican primary voters, that's one of their, scary as it sounds, their only source of information. And so you're communicating to your own kind of echo chamber there. And I think that's, as long as they keep pumping out that kind of content and laying the groundwork for that mentality of really laying the groundwork of why Trump's failing and blaming it and putting the blame elsewhere, I think there's a good chance that they won't abandon Trump. I mean, I think that there's 25% of Republican voters who under no scenario will ever abandon Trump, because they've bought into the idea that there is this conspiracy, that there is the fake news media that's in on it. And I wouldn't be surprised as time goes on and if Trump's failures continue to mount up, if he starts turning on everybody in Congress. If he starts pointing the directive at both Republicans and Democrats are the problem, let's throw all of them out in the midterms, because really, if you're Trump, the best case scenario is a throw the bums out mentality, because that means both Republicans and Democrats will end up getting kicked out, and we'll have a whole influx of new members of Congress come in next November, and for whatever losses Democrats might get, some Republicans will be on the target list, too.
Yeah. And from a Breitbart media consultant, Kurt Bardella, who's now with Endeavor Strategies. I mean, Kurt, I would assume that the alt-right, you know, there is this story that it is Stephen Bannon, Axios reports, that Bannon likes the idea of Miller for the job, and Miller was the hero of the West Wing, to the point that Evan just made after he attacked Koss as a cosmopolitan for his views on immigration, because, of course, the alt-right, being the white nationalist entity that it is, thought it was amazing what he did. So, you know, I assume Breitbart World will be thrilled to have Stephen Miller running the communications department.
Oh, absolutely. This is having one of their own, and a lot's been written and documented about the strong, long-standing relationship between Stephen Miller, when he was working for then Senator, now Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and Breitbart and Bannon, and how, you know, Stephen was really the go-between between the Breitbart reporters and Senator Sessions, constantly talking and strategizing with them. I also think, too, that this appointment would signal a little bit of a healing between the damage that may have been done with Trump's attacks against Jeff Sessions, and bringing in his guy, you know, Sessions' guy that was his longtime communications director as the White House communications director, a Sessions' ally. I think that would do a lot in their estimation as well to kind of smooth over that. You saw just the other day, Trump tweeted something very complimentary about Jeff Sessions, first time in weeks that he said anything positive about him.
Right.
So I think that there's a calculus that this could serve a couple different purposes. One, really healing that rift that existed between some on the right and Trump after the attacks on the Attorney General.
But Kurt, isn't the Breitbart wing, they despise the Paul Ryan wing, so why would working with the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue be helpful at all with the base that likes Stephen Miller?
It might be helpful at getting something done, but it would completely, you know, the challenge is every time that they try to do something with Capitol Hill, Breitbart comes out with a story attacking someone on Capitol Hill, particularly someone in the Republican leadership, whether it be Mitch McConnell or Paul Ryan, and so that spirit of working with Congress gets completely undermined. And everyone assumes that when you see a negative headline at Breitbart about a member of Congress or member of the leadership, that they're taking their cues from someone inside the White House in the West Wing and Steve Bannon.
There you go. All right. Well, Tara Dowdell, Evan Siegfried, Karine Jean-Pierre, Kurt Bardella, another super panel. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Coming